People are addicted to getting to the moments that everybody loves to talk about. Everybody loves to talk about the proposal. Everybody loves to talk about the wedding. Everybody loves to talk about the courtship. But once you cross that line into marriage, you're stepping into different unknown seasons that you may or may not have the capacity for once you step over that line.
What's up, Brave Arts community? This is Sean Heineman, your premier pre-engagement coach, back with another segment of It's Scary to Remarry, inspiring you to love fearlessly with my co-host, Aquila Maddox. What's up, Q?
What's going on? I'm excited for today. Extra
Oh,
excited.
oh yeah, that's a small world, huh?
It is. It is.
Well, today's topic, we're going to discuss why breaking patterns can save your love life. I love this topic. Q, I want to be respectful of our guest time. We have a whole backstory to share, but let's bring in our special guest.
Absolutely. Y'all are in for a treat. This brother is like my brother from another mother, one and only like no other. You know what I'm saying? So this is Bryan Thomas, you guys, and he is a life and relationship coach who resides in the greater Atlanta area. He is a graduate of Georgia Southern University with a bachelor in sociology and has obtained a master's degree in business administration from Keller Graduate School of Management. He is the founder of Championship Caliber Enterprises LLC. He works with single men and women who are looking to become better prepared for future relationships. He mentors couples in their journey toward marriage and help build married couples to build their legacy towards growing in love and stability with each other. So, without further ado, I just want to welcome my friend, my social media friend. We've never met in person, but we do this, y'all. This is our space. Very passionate, brother, and I'm super grateful to have him on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Bryan Thomas.
What is going on, man? I'm excited about tonight's conversation. Aquila, it is good to see you again. I mean, every time I see you, you got a little bit of extra crispy on you. So I'm excited about what you are gonna bring in. And Sean, man, your platform is amazing. I am just so glad I get an opportunity to do a little bit of contribution. I know there've been some heavy hitters on there, so I'm only here to just add to what you've already started here.
Hey, that's what's up, man. Shout out to Aquila, man, because we have, reached another level with her being in the building with us, man. So shout out to her. And I want to jump into this
No,
topic.
first of all, y'all, before we got on, he said I was the GOAT because Bryan knows me in this space. And I appreciated those kudos. But what I wanted to take a moment to do on this lovely Scary to Remarry podcast is to give my kudos because he said I'm the GOAT, but I feel like the GOATiest GOAT, okay, is Sean Heineman. All right. And I wanted to make sure I gave kudos, public kudos, to my other brother from another mother who has been the most consistent, diligent, and passionate. Let me tell you, even when he was navigating divorce, this man was still out here doing this thing to promote and to encourage relationships. So I said, we got to get back on the camera so I can make sure that people know that I am honestly so just in awe of him. He has been doing this for well over 10 years. And if anybody deserves you got this, you the man, it's this guy. Okay. So Sean, I'm just proud of you. I just want to make sure you know that.
It's all love. Thank you so much.
You
It's
are
all good.
welcome.
Yes.
Let's get
Key.
into these good questions.
Yeah, let's jump into these questions, Brian. So what are some of the most common patterns you see sabotaging people's love lives, and why do they go unnoticed for so long?
Well, there's a few patterns that I want to dive into, but one of the main patterns that I see from people, and I've been guilty of that, is we have a tendency that when we first meet somebody, we have a tendency to do a little bit more love bombing than we need to. Like, we live in a culture where we believe in applying pressure, and applying pressure, it doesn't necessarily hit the way that we think it does because essentially what ends up happening is that when we try to do quote unquote apply pressure, what ends up happening is that we run out of gas. The Bible even says love is patient, love is kind. So why are you trying to move so quickly towards something that is meant to last forever? So
Agreed.
I think a lot of times, and I've been guilty of this. Listen, I'm not going to point the finger. Listen, y'all, I've been married before, but I refuse to be one of these ones that come on and have a sob story like my person that left, they did this, and so this is the reason why I'm in that situation. No, I'm going to be 100% accountable. I've been guilty in previous relationships of doing a little bit more of a love bombing, meaning that I came out strong. I did the cards, I did the gifts, I did the visiting, I paid for the dinners. And I thought that because I had did all of those things in the name of being a gentleman, that was enough for it to last to where I didn't have to do anything. So we do a little bit of love bombing. There's a lot of people that do a lot of, love bombing. Another thing that I think is a pattern is we search for people who have similarities with us that hadn't been worked out yet. So we search for people whose patterns match our patterns, and then we get comfortable in thinking that because they match our patterns that we're compatible. Usually if they match your patterns, you guys are not compatible, because eventually what's going to end up happening is that somebody is going to figure out that they need to change those patterns, and then somebody's going to get upset because you're no longer the same person that they're dealing with.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he's just going to come out the park like that. He's just going to come out the park. You ain't going to give us no chance. None. No.
I mean, I just, I'm a student of really taking the things that I have learned in my life and applying them to make sure that I'm able to give people a realistic point of view, because the realest testimony is not what you tell other people. The realest testimony is what you have endured and what you have overcome, and how you can testify and say, this is what I did. You should do differently.
Mm-hmm. I definitely think it's a really good observation, as well as a personal call out for people to do life with the reality that they too can be guilty of love bombing. And there's always, unfortunately, like the brain sometimes go to the absolute worst. And so people say, that's not me. Like I didn't do it the manipulative, coming in, trying to trick you, to draw you in. And you know what I'm saying? So because that wasn't the intention, they missed the fact that they've been guilty of love bombing. Because I think that, here's a point of view for anybody out there who's like, well, I don't think I love bombed or whatever, because they're only thinking of it from the narcissistic way or anything in that type of direction. We actually have we get excited sometimes. We meet people, we get excited. And I don't know about y'all, but I remember talking to my brother and telling him, I said, ooh, because we would talk about being rich. We were still adults but younger. And he said, Quila, what would you do or something? I said, I got to get my discipline together. He said, why you said that? I said, because I'm a happy rich person. I'll give everything away. When I'm happy, I'm extra giver, like extreme giver. And I would give everything away. I would have to work on that because, and so what I'm saying that to say is sometimes we are those extreme we are those extreme givers when we're extra happy. And so you want to check that within yourself to say, am I the person who, because I'm guilty, I've been guilty of that too, even as a woman. I'm like, I like him. I want to show, right? And people will tell you love is an action. I want to show you that I like you. So I show up. I may do certain things. Listen, Linda, I done had custom gifts made. Don't give me a reason to order something. You hear me? Because it's not even about, and for me, it's not about like, and listen, I'm not out here tracking what I gave. So it's okay. I'm not like, oh, I gave this to you. Nope. If we're together and you're celebrating something, I'm like, and I like you, I'm a happy giver. I'm like, let me order this customized travel bag to tell them congratulations for this, And then they're like, dang, nobody. And if we don't last, it's cool. But what I'm saying is to your point, we're capable of being those happy givers, showing up, giving these things and all this other stuff with a high hope that it does go somewhere and lead into something. You see what I'm saying? So I think it's a really good self call out for us to take inventory and say, I probably need to chill and I need to break that, as a pattern where I'm not just so excited at first meeting. Y'all know that's how the people buy they get sold lemons, right? They play in on your emotions because you're so excited they can just give you anything. Well, I believe in the same manner what you're saying is that we are also capable of being sold
Mm-hmm.
because we're too excited and we're not giving ourselves the chance to really genuinely find out if this is really a good fit, if this person really shares the same energy, they're reciprocating. Like you said, we're just at the gate, like, oh man, we had a couple good conversations. Don't let you stay up till 5 o'clock in the morning with a call because you already probably plotting the wedding. You know what I mean? Like,
It's funny. Let me tell you something that I've learned in just my time of just relationships. Obviously, I'm in a great relationship now where I have had to literally take my time with what it is that I have been giving. Because the thing that I understand about, especially ladies, is ladies are, even though they are emotional, ladies are like movie directors. They pay attention to the script that you give them. And if you do too much too fast, they're going to start they're going to start investigating and saying, okay, what is it that you are trying to get my eyes off of? And so what I have learned is that in my current relationship that I didn't do in other relationships is really just pace yourself. Know that the love that you're developing is going to take time. I think that in this culture, people are addicted to getting to the moments that everybody loves to talk about. Everybody loves to talk about the proposal. Everybody loves to talk about the wedding. Everybody loves to talk about the courtship. But once you cross that line into marriage, you're stepping into different unknown seasons that you may or may not have the capacity for once you step over that line. And so the goal is that as you're developing love, you're developing the patience for evolution. That person is going to change. And I think a lot of times we believe that a relationship is supposed to be black and white. No, it has different colors. It's going to be red one day, and it may be blue the other day, and it may be black another day. And if we're just going in, it's got to be like this, it's got to be like that, then you're not going to be able to continue to evolve in that relationship. Because bottom line is this: whoever you choose to be with in a relationship, they are going to evolve in a way to where it's going to make you feel uncomfortable. That person may end up going to therapy and they may discover something about themselves that you got comfortable with. And so because they discovered something about themselves that you got comfortable with, when they start to change it, now you feel a certain type of way because why did you change something that I got used to? I changed it because I needed to evolve. I changed it because that pattern was going to lead us to arguments and frustrations and thought processes that was going to have me thinking that you were never going to change. But you ever notice that when your partner starts to change something that you've accepted, even though you don't believe it's going to change, you get upset because now you've taken away something that I expected of you not to change.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Absolutely.
I was listening to Matthew Hussey the other day.
I love that guy.
Okay, Matthew, he's like a real popular relationship,
Yeah.
But he was on Lewis Howes' show, School of Greatness, and he said the biggest issue with dating is when you lie to the person that you're dating, when you don't give them all the necessary information. He was like, you walk away with somebody you never should have walked away with
Mm.
because you sold them a fake version of you. And
Mm.
you spent 3 or 4 years with a lie. When if you would have told the truth, that person could have walked away and you could have got the right person. But because you lied, you ended up with the wrong person. I said,
That's true. That's so good.
You want to know what's crazy about that?
what's up?
Here's the thing. When you are honest and transparent with a person in the very, very beginning, you are building the capacity for them to accept you as you evolve. When you come into a relationship and a you're giving a person a facade. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost like, okay, you ever seen a movie that was really, really good, but the ending was bad? That's what ends up happening a lot of the times when you go into a relationship and you don't give the person the truth about it. You have this beautiful movie and then you get to the end and it's so disappointing because it's like, well, I thought that this movie was going to be this. No, it ends up being something totally different. You leave them with disappointment. You leave them questioning and saying, well, what in the world were we doing all of this time while we were getting to know each other? I thought you gave me a version where it was safe to evolve, but now I realize that I evolved out of tune because the person that I've evolved to accept the person that I thought you were, now it don't mix because the truth about who you are has changed.
It's like a container with a plant, right?
Yeah.
If you're creating a limitation of the atmosphere, right? So the
Mhm.
plant will have, you can get a plant, and of course it has to be, it may grow to a position, but do you know that, like there's been fruits, if you've ever seen a vegetable shaped a certain way, because
Mhm.
they shaped it that way, creating an environment so that it can follow that growth pattern can follow a specific shape. And so what you're saying, and it's so good and true, like both of those points are very important. And I think because we're sometimes selfish, we're like, I like this person who I see and experience today. So it's kind of like I'm gonna be honest, like I don't necessarily have a green thumb. And without proper education, I'm very capable of killing a plant that I don't intend to kill and stifling its growth. So if I don't know that as this plant, I think I'm doing a good job because I'm watering it. I'm, making sure I, kind of knead the soil a little bit so that it, making sure the roots have space to breathe. But as it begins to grow, if I'm because I'm let's just say I'm uneducated around the necessity and now giving it a greater and a bigger space to grow in, I just leave it in the pot because it's dirty. It gets dirty to allow it to, for me to take it out of where it's at and put it in a new place. That's dirty. I got to get my hands dirty. I've got to get more soil. I've got to pat it out. I got to do all these things. Well, a lot of times what you're basically saying is we don't want to get dirty. We don't want to deal with the messiness of somebody growing and somebody evolving into something that may now require a different version of it shaping us, because your growth is going to impact me, right? My growth is going to impact you. And we are comfortable with just not being messy, right? Without us having to go into, like you said, the discomfort, because discomfort is messy. It makes you have feelings. It makes you have, you know what I'm saying? You're going to have this probably array of thoughts and stuff. And so a lot of times out of selfishness, we'll say, you know what, I want you to stay with, I like who you are today. And I'm guilty of being in a circumstance, to be honest with you, where I had to recognize where people are trying to hold me hostage because they like me, but they're not good for me. And that doesn't mean they're bad to me. And I think another part of humans is that we have a very hard time dealing with the fact that somebody may be good to us, but not for us. You
Mhm.
know what I mean?
That's good.
So
And
Yes.
Brian, and Brian, I want to kind of piggyback because you said something that was really good too. You said about about a movie, the movie looked good, but it ended bad. You stuck around and watched this whole movie. You were so upset. So I was thinking in the comments below, were you ever in a bad movie? Were you?
are you
Listen,
kidding? We probably directed some of it, Sean.
listen, I have seen some bad movies. In fact, I'm gonna tell you, my current
I am
significant
Christopher
other,
Nolan. I have, yeah. I got some. I got
my
some
current
good
significant
movies.
other, one of the first movies that we went to go see, I won't say the name of it, but the movie, it had, good little plot, different, part. But it got to the end, and then the end, it left you with the why did it go this particular way? And it was disappointing because it was like you were doing so good, the storyline was making so much sense, and then it just went in a different direction that has you wondering, like, why did I just sit here for an hour and a half and really watch this movie thinking that it was going to go one way? And I think one of the things with relationships, and this is a mistake that a lot of people make, and this is a pattern that I think everybody has. We assumed we assume that a person is going to do something to us based on past associations that no longer mean anything.
Agreed.
For example, one of the things that I was guilty of, because again, I'm going to put myself as the culprit. One of the things that I was guilty of was going into relationships and getting to a certain point and then allowing myself to self-sabotage. I'm waiting on you to do what it is that I previously dealt with. And so if you're not doing it the way that I previously associated with it, let me go ahead and be the character that is the catalyst for the thing that I'm waiting for. We assume that people are going to do things to us that we have seen before. So there's a lot of men, I'm going to talk about women. I'm going to leave the women alone tonight. But there is a lot of men who have a tendency when it comes to provision. They will go out here and they will go get the bag because they will say, okay, I got to go out here and get the bag because I want access to the best women. I want access to, the women that are going to want to be with me. I want access to the women that are the most beautiful. And you don't work on your character. So then what ends up happening is that you get the bad woman, but then the bad character that you did not work on also stands. So not only are you a person that isn't good, but you're a person that has developed behaviors that are hidden behind the very thing that you're chasing after. Because how many men became worse men when they got money?
Yep. Yeah, they say if you want to show a person character, just give them some money. You know, and I'm glad that you said that, Brian, because I want to segue into this next question: is how can someone tell the difference between a personal preference and a toxic pattern that needs to be broken?
Oh, that's a tough one. So a personal preference basically is something that a person has always been used to. It's something that a person has been doing, over and over again. It's something that they've associated themselves with for a long period of time. But now when we're talking about something that's toxic, it becomes toxic when you begin to lose yourself. Toxicity causes you to lose yourself. If you think about anything toxic,
absolutely,
anything toxic causes your body to react differently than what it's used to.
Absolutely.
When you're dealing with someone toxic, it causes you to evolve and become something that you were never intended to be. For example, for a gentleman that is pursuing a young lady and she happens to be toxic, what you're going to find out is that he's going to go above and beyond and beg and plead and give chances to a woman that's not best for him. And then once he finds out that that's not enough, now in his mind, he has associated that effort in this area doesn't work. Let me be mean. So toxic changes
or
you.
even just the extra version of nice, like overly, like you said, that begging and things like that, because there's a level of nice that's really great. And then there's sometimes a level of nice that's unhealthy, like you said, losing yourself, that there may be specific boundaries that you have. And now you're allowing that person to go beyond those boundaries because it's keeping the peace. They're like, oh, I'm just trying to avoid the next argument or whatever. So that's absolutely, that's really good. And that's definitely true. You made a comment about going beyond or being impacted in a way that, you use the example like the finances and to where if a person takes on, like if you have, you're not working on your character and you're not able to, what would you say to the woman, Brian, who is in that circumstance where like you said, it looked like the good movie. It looked like because let's just say I talked to a woman recently and she said, but Aquila, I prayed and asked the Lord, I think, I really believe that I got what I prayed for. And I said, what do you mean? She says, I prayed and asked God for, someone who loves me, who loves my children, who cares about me, who's there for me. And I was like, okay. And she was like, but he won't get a job.
Okay. So I'm about to
So,
get in trouble real quick. Okay. All right. So one of the things that I have learned about when we pray for things, it's almost as if when we pray for things, God allows us to be put in situations to where we now have to develop the skills for what it is that we prayed for.
mm,
You have to develop the analysis to be able to know what that looks like. Because a lot of times when we pray a prayer and say, Lord, I desire to be with somebody that's going to love me. I desire to be with somebody that's going to treat me this particular way and love my kids. We then need to define what that looks like. So what happens a lot of times is that people pray prayers and they don't know what that looks like. They have an association in their head of this is the way that it is, but you have to look at your history and say, okay, if the love that I have looked at before looks like this, and the Bible says his words, his thoughts are not my thoughts or my words, it means that you got to go to another level of thinking, which means that I need to go in the past and research what type of love have I seen?
Yeah.
What did it look like? What was it wrapped up in? The thing about it, again, I'm going to dive into me. The thing that I dealt with as far as love for me was not me being able to experience what I'm experiencing now, where I'm open to receive. But what I experienced was I dealt with Superman syndrome. It was easy for me to find a damsel in distress and try to rack my brain to do everything I could to make their life easier. And so, because I did that, what ended up happening was I spent valuable time trying to develop a person or develop a relationship with a person that God was like, that's not the definition of love. That's your definition of love. And until you change your definition of love, you're going to continue to go through that cycle over and over again. So, what I would say to the ladies that are praying that prayer, you need to look at your history of what you have experienced before and begin to look for the opposite of that definition. Because if we are praying for love to be, and we haven't defined that definition, God will allow opportunities to come, but then he will not allow you to be able to see it because you will limit it based off of the definition that you already had.
Yeah, that's good. And I wanted to say, that was, again, just to be mindful about this toxicity, right? Some of this, trickery that we find ourselves falling for is because, like you said, you was like, okay, well, if this guy don't work on his character, yeah, but how did he pull the woman? So that's why I wanted to address, we got to do some work too. We're not as, I think it's too often that it's compared to villain and victim, but I just think it really should be about being accountable. And like you said, and being mature enough to properly judge a circumstance and say, you know what, I recognize that my reasoning for even being in a place where I was essentially, I fell for the man who, like you said, he didn't work on his character, but he pulled a baddie. Well, why did he pull the baddie? Because the baddie thought, either A, you got to be honest with your intentions was just to get the bag because he got the bag. That's what he's selling is the bag. That's what he's promoting is the bag. And that's what you want is the bag. Okay. Be honest if that's you. And if that's you, I'm not talking to you. Amen. I'm talking to the person who was like, there was a guy who presented himself like he's got these things. He's got the bag. He wants to care for me. You see what I'm saying? And that has a look. But like you said, we get caught in patterns because a person can also present whatever looks like the good, the goodness that other person wants for a short period of time. And in that short period of time, they've already invested so many emotions. But we have to like you said, we got to take inventory and say, did I just associate this with familiarity? You know what I'm saying? And that goes back to, again, breaking the pattern, because basically you're still in the same, you're still in that same vein, Bryan, of making sure that we do not fall into having these patterns, and it causes the demise of our own relationships. I wanted to ask you, what role does childhood or past relationship trauma play in forming unhealthy dating or marriage patterns?
It plays a huge part because your childhood and past trauma becomes the script of what you internally start looking for in those relationships. You know, believe it or not, many people that have walked through trauma, because of the way that the mind works, the mind is one big recorder. And what it does is that it identifies different things that you've gone through. And subconsciously, you start looking for the storyline that you've been used to. Okay, for example, if I drive a certain type of car, let's just say that I grew up and I had a parent that loved BMWs. When I start looking for my car, I'm going to begin looking for the car that closely fits the description of what it is that I saw growing up. The subconscious mind has the ability to lock in characteristics. And then when you begin to start dating or you start getting into relationships, you comfortably start to feel as if you're at peace because it looks like what you have seen before. What they said is that I think a study showed that from ages, I believe it's ages 6 to 10, that's where you begin to develop your capacities for what you will accept as an adult. It doesn't happen when you're a teen, because as a teen you are in your growing years, but it's from ages, I believe it's like 6 to 10. You're developing the capacities for whatever it is that you're going to accept later on in life. So those things play a huge part in the choices that we make and the script that we accept when it comes to relationships.
Mm, love that. That is so good. Yeah, because Aquila, I think we kind of talked about this yesterday when we was even talking about like family of origin and like when a married couple get together, like a lot of their struggles is who how we gonna run this house? Is it are we gonna run it based on the way you do things or
Yep.
the way you grew up or
Yep.
the way I grew up? I grew up in a single parent home. My mom made a whole bunch of money, so we're gonna run a house like this. No, I had a two-parent home, and so we're gonna run a house like this. And it's like a lot of couples struggle in that newlywed phase because they're just like, so how are we gonna do this? We had this constant battle of how our household going to be ran. And I asked a question the other day about, are we more concerned about the family we come from or the family that we're trying to create?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so those childhood memories, that childhood trauma plays huge. Like you said, Brian, that's 6 to 10, and we can all just think of in our own lives from 6 to 10, maybe what was happening in our own personal lives.
Yeah. And sometimes sometimes you're trying to attach to the familiarity, and sometimes you're trying to fight the familiar.
Mm.
It can go either way, but like you stated, it can definitely be the driving force for how we find ourselves in some of the circumstances as adults when it comes to relationship. I remember for myself growing up, my parents were married. Well, so the dad I grew up with married my mom, but he came into my life in our lives when I was 4. And so I saw them at some point. They started, I don't know what happened and where we took a wrong turn, but I started seeing some domestic disputes, and eventually I started seeing, like, even my mom at one point disrespecting my dad. And that was probably because of the things that I saw happen to her when, I was younger. And then, it was just this constant battle. They were together forever. And then at some point they got separated, but they were still together, very drawn to each other and stuff like that. Well, that became the catalyst for me to be like, I don't want to be arguing with folk. I don't want to be out here fighting with the people. I don't want to. And if anything remotely resembled like we about to move into this lane. It could have been a legit conversation. And if it made me feel like intimidation, I was questioning whether or not I should continue here because I'm afraid I don't want to land where I saw my mother land. You understand what I'm saying? So there you can be fighting it, right? Or, so the fighting it, meaning I don't want to go into recreating that life is one thing. But then after that, if you start, like you said, the brain goes with the familiar and be like, oh, his voice was raised. Y'all might be getting ready to fight. My stomach is in knots. I'm concerned, and not necessarily like me fight because that's not what it is. But all of a sudden, I'm like, am I about to become a victim or something? And so then it's a just cause for pause. Like, oh, should I not do it? And now instead of working through the difficulty or the whatever that conversation is, or like you said, those feelings that I encountered, I'm out here like, nope.
Yeah.
Hey, Bryan, I have a question. When I was looking at these questions, I couldn't wait to ask you this one because I think a lot of people struggle with this as well. Before we get ready to end the show, how can a couple stay patient and committed during the uncomfortable in between season after we've broken a pattern before we've built a new one?
Well, that's a good one.
Ask it one more time. I want to make sure because it's
Yeah, it's
five
kind of
different ways.
yeah. I'm gonna repeat it.
Yeah.
How can a couple stay patient and committed during the uncomfortable in between season
Mm-hmm.
after we've broken a pattern, but before we've built a new one?
So this is one thing that I have begun to understand in the current relationship is this. Okay. Relationships is two people's lifelines relating to each other, which means it puts into the equation that there are going to be uncomfortable moments that you're going to have to walk through. Now, because uncomfortable moments are inevitable, you must keep under control the very thing that can destroy those uncomfortable moments, and that is emotions that are unprocessed. Open up your mouth and have the conversations as much as you can. The problem in our culture is that women sometimes are allowed to express themselves at the highest level. And then when men express themselves, it may not necessarily be at a level to where they're trying to match, but they're at least opening their mouth and they're saying something, because if a man holds on to what he's got going on, eventually he's going to blow up.
Yep.
So they have to, in the case of that period, both of them have to have developed safe spaces for each other, meaning that it's okay in moments where it's uncomfortable. It's okay for you to uncover what's going on, because if you try to hold on to it and I'm gonna just pray about it, I'm gonna say something that may get me in trouble, but at this point I don't care. A lot of people are spending too much time praying and not enough time actually conquering the issue. A lot of times you be sitting there praying and the Lord will be like, okay, I want to move, but I need your faith. Faith is activating what it is that you need to do in order to get to the breakthrough. So in those uncomfortable times, sit down, have a conversation. If you have to, go sit down with an unbiased third party and begin to process those emotions. Because here's the thing, when it's uncomfortable like that, that is simply the body, the mind, and the spirit telling you, hey, we are progressing. If you look at when you are starting to build muscle or you're starting to lose weight, in the very, very beginning, it's going to be sore because the body is not used to that type of movement. So the relationship is not used to that type of movement. So now, as you're getting in the uncomfortable phase of building that relationship, now what you have to do is you have to be honest about where you are. You have to be transparent about where you are. You have to say, you know what, this is uncomfortable. And when the other person tells you that it's uncomfortable, have empathy. I don't think we have a lot of empathy in relationships. I think we just expect people to just know things. You should know this, you should know that. No, it's a moment of education.
Yep.
What are you learning? What are you, the fact is that a relationship is also learning. What have I learned about this individual in this uncomfortable time frame? How have they evolved? How have they begun to change? And this is where we also got to look at what was the original vision of the relationship? Because if the original vision of the relationship wasn't marriage, guess what? You're uncomfortable because you're getting ready to go separate, because there is no thought process of the unity towards a relationship being further than where it is. But if you're like, hey, this is somebody that I really see myself with, that uncomfortable phase is to strengthen your muscles for the other uncomfortable journeys that you're going to take together.
Yep.
Love that. That is so good. Love it. Yeah,
Or
because
that uncomfortable phase is like, oh shoot, I found myself somewhere I wasn't planning on being.
and I like that you talked about the muscles too, because I tell people this all the time that so many relationships are overweight, it's ridiculous. They not in the gym, they not working those muscles. I mean, these relationships looking like Pillsbury Doughboy because
Listen,
they're not willing to work the muscles. They're not putting in those reps. So I
that's
think
it.
that's
Yep.
something that you got to have the uncomfortable conversation. And I know I've been guilty of it. Sometimes I'm like, man, we coasting, but I don't feel like bringing this up. You know what I'm saying? We coasting.
That's
Yeah.
such a good point because a lot of people feel that way, Sean. I think a lot of people feel like I don't want to cause a rift because it's good, but what you don't realize is it's going to occur whether you like it or not, because like he just talked about, the growing pains, right? We're
Yeah.
working out something. And because, if you do keep in mind, like you said, what was the vision of the relationship? What I think too often people forget is when they're in this relationship, they're experiencing this discomfort, whatever that looks like. We're still partners.
Yep.
It's
Partners. We're still working through this together. You see what I'm saying? I have the baby and I'm experiencing all the pain, but that does not change that you have a necessary place here involved. And I think that's how we kind of got to look at it. One person may be in the most pain. If you, God forbid, broke your leg, I'm not the person in pain, but I'm still the partner to you while you're enduring this. And I want to be there in full support of you to do the best that I can to walk with you during this moment. And I think that it's a lot harder for people to become partners to these emotional pain points because they don't see it to put a band-aid on it. It does not have a crutch. It does not have what I'm saying, something that makes us mentally associate a need for support in that way.
uncomfortable conversations have become something that I have welcomed, especially in this relationship. So recently, there was a moment where something had happened. And again, I'm a culprit. I've been guilty of flying off the handle. Listen, I'm the one.
Get your
And
handle back. Get your handle back.
So in this particular sequence, when I had a conversation with my significant other, I did something a little bit different. It was uncomfortable. But what I said was, I said, hey, you did this and this caused me to feel this way. But I want to make sure that I separate the past experiences that I've gone through from the action that you did and let you know that this action bothered me, but it may have been affected by something that I previously have experienced. So let me put that previous experience to the side and let me find out what was your thought process when you did this. And when I did that, it caused that uncomfortable feeling to go away, because a lot of times the uncomfortable feelings that we have, a lot of times it's based on previous experiences. And so we're waiting on the replay when it's uncomfortable.
Yep.
Sometimes when we are able to have those conversations and separate the replay, we then find out that a lot of the uncomfortable feeling that we have was really the spirit of fear that was waiting to replay what we experienced before.
I agree. 100% money back guarantee. We can just go and shut it down right there.
Shut it down. Mic drop. Oh man, this is yeah. We're gonna have to bring you back for a second round.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, because I think we're just getting started.
Yeah.
So yeah.
In this corner, weighing 200. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, hey, Brian, let everyone know how they can get in touch with you. I'll have everything linked in the description, but yeah, give us up on
Perfect.
YouTube.
Perfect. Coach BT316 on Instagram, TikTok, Bryan Thomas on Facebook. And yeah, that's pretty much that. Just reach out, talk with me, and whatever I can do to help, relationships or just even life, just hit the inbox. I'll help you out as best I can.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up. Love it. Well, Brave Hearts community, you heard it here. Go and connect with Brian. As you can see, the man just started to cook, and we're gonna have to bring him back again. So this has definitely been a banger. Brave Hearts community, hit the subscribe button, share this in your group chat, and make sure you leave a rating and review if you are listening to this on Apple Podcasts. By doing so, put you in a drawing for a free Amazon gift card. Aquila, let everyone know how they can get in touch with you.
Y'all know y'all could find me right here on Scary to Remarry on YouTube. Act like you know, because you do.
They already know, Q.
They already know.
All right. Well, Brave Hearts community, make sure you go connect with Q. Even though she's here, she still got her own stuff too. But yeah, share this. I'm looking forward to us doing this again. Brian, thanks again for your time. Appreciate you.
No
And
problem,
Brave
man.
Hearts community, we